This podcast is a uniting heart and soul production and was recorded on land that was stolen nearly 250 years ago. Filthy Hope was conceived and dreamt on Gadigal and Birrabirragal country. We acknowledge these peoples as the traditional owners of these lands, and we extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We here at Filthy Hope take part in and humbly contribute to the ancient and ongoing traditions of storytelling when we share stories on this podcast.
Let's do this.
I'm sure this boosts our economy. Just Mother's Day alone.
Yeah, it's like Valentine's Day.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's just a rort, and all the mums get these lame gifts, you know? And it was a bit disturbing because the first mum that I loved was Endora, and she was the mother on Bewitched. Yeah. You can't just leave it when you go to work in the apartment. It's a 24/7 commitment for the next 30 fucking years.
Welcome to Filthy Hope. If it's your first time here, welcome. I'm Jonty.
I'm Ness.
And on this show, we spend time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life and culture intersect. We've been doing this might be episode 51 or 52 by the time this comes out. So I feel like at the moment we're only just starting to, well, me, I don't know how you feel, but like I'm only just like figuring out how to do this whole podcast thing.
Yeah, I'm not as nervous anymore.
Well,
I get
good.
like excited. Remember how nervous I'd get? I'd turn up and I'd go, "Oh, Jonty, I didn't sleep last night. I'm so stressed. I can't do this, Jonty." And you'd say, "Come on, Ness, you'll be fine." Yeah. Now I go, "Yeah, let's go, Jonty. Let's do this thing."
I feel like that's switched because now I think I'm usually the one that like now I have a bit more experience on the back end of it as well.
Yes,
like now I get more stressed.
Yeah.
But how are you? How are things going?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm all right. Got a bit of a snot nose, but other than that, I'm all right.
Yeah, so if you hear in the nose.
That's me, mate. I'm sorry, brother.
Apologies to everyone that just had to endure that.
Yep.
I'm doing all right. I had like I live in remove city name here, where I live kind of on a to get anywhere I have to use the motorway, which means I merge onto 110 kilometre an hour road just about every day.
Hang on, I'm sensing a Vent Central. Is this where this is going?
I hadn't even thought about that, but yes, this is Event Central.
So play the music, Jonty.
Yeah, so I guess, Vent Central, people that don't know how to merge.
What is that?
I think, I was saying to my partner the other day, I think to get your Ps, to get your provisional license, you should, as part of the test, there should be some sort of metric by which they can measure your ability to merge.
Merge school.
Yeah, because you've got all these other things that you've got to do to be able to get your Ps, but I think being able to merge is an underrated and underappreciated trait in good driving, especially if you're stuck in the on-ramp onto a motorway behind someone doing 75 kilometres an hour with 3 lanes of 110 going whizzing past. Like,
it's like crazy.
It's just dangerous.
I know. I can't stand it. And you know that thing where you're cruising along and you're indicating and you want to merge in, but the guy behind you knows you want to merge in and there's traffic lights coming up ahead, and the best he's going to do by not letting you merge in is be a car in front of you and stopped at the traffic light.
Exactly.
And still the fucker won't let you merge in. I just love that. Yeah. I just love it because what I do is after him not letting me in, I obviously come in because the other guy feels sorry for me.
Yeah.
And I slink in, and then I make sure that I do lots of kissing in my mirror to him and sending love hearts and just fangirling him from the distance from the car behind.
Yeah.
I think, what is wrong with you?
I used to just do the thumbs up.
Yeah.
So like if
Yeah.
someone cuts me off or they don't, or that situation where you end up
Yes.
behind them or whatever, I just thumbs
Yeah,
up in
good job.
But now I actually find, because that is like, I feel like that's condescending enough to elicit the right response. But now I actually, I'll either go straight thumbs down or I'll do like the Roman centurion, thumb out in the middle, and then as they pass, I'll just go and thumb down.
So polite.
Well, it's better than the other hand signal.
Yeah, I suppose. It's very kind.
Because what are they going to do? Like, you gave me a thumbs down. How dare you? As opposed to flipping the bird or something.
Or they said to me, gee, stop blowing me kisses, girl.
Yeah. Learn how to merge.
That's right. Loser.
So there you go, the impromptu event central.
Love it.
For today.
So, Jonty,
Yeah,
we've just had Mother's Day,
we have.
and it's all about the mums.
Mm-hmm.
There's been soap, there's been nighties, there's been fluffy slippers, there's been lunches out. I'm sure this boosts our economy. Just Mother's Day alone.
Yeah, it's like Valentine's Day.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's just a rort, and all the mums get these lame gifts, Not that my kids give me lame gifts.
I was going to say, you're dropping a bomb there on your kids.
No, they give me great gifts always. They're just incredible. I loved it when they both got jobs at Gloria Jean's because I actually started getting glasshouse candles. It was so good. And Mimco earrings, really cool shit. It was like, yeah, I'm quite liking this Mother's Day stall. It's like an amp up from the year 6 school fatey Mother's Day thing with,
Little plastic
bits
thingy with chocolates in it or whatever.
a little cup that says "I love you, Mum." Yeah. All of the things. But I wanted to ask you, Jonty.
Yeah.
On telly, there's lots of mothers on telly. Have you got a favourite mum on telly, or a series of mums on telly?
Oh, gosh. See, I might answer this with TV/movies.
Oh yeah, movies are good.
Because I barely watch any television.
Uh-huh.
And the first one that jumps to mind, obviously, is Twin Peaks, because that's the one show that I'm a absolute nutter for. I don't know if there are any particularly great mothers, but Sarah Palmer, who's the mother of Laura Palmer, whose death kicks off the series. It's an investigative FBI investigating the murder of this young girl, Laura Palmer. Her mother, Sarah Palmer, is a major-ish character throughout the whole series. And one of the things I love about Twin Peaks is, and one of the things that series is commenting on and kind of critiquing, is the way that, particularly with like crime shows, when people die, it doesn't really mean anything. There's like one scene where they might go to the funeral, but then the next week they're forgotten about and they've moved on to the next mystery. Whereas in Twin Peaks, Sarah is grieved the whole time. And I feel like that was really surprising to me, but also a really kind of cool model of someone not just like, I mean, at bare minimum, she's just behaving like a normal, real human being as opposed to a television character. So that one sticks out to me.
Why do you like the mum? What are the attributes of the mum that grabs you? Is she hot?
No.
Is she a hot mum?
I didn't think we'd be getting into this.
She's got
but
boobs.
We're not talking about
Why are you
MILFs
laughing?
today, Ness. We're
Why are
talking
you
about
laughing?
Mother's Day.
But why are you laughing? You've got all flushy in the
Because
cheeks.
I love the idea that on a Mother's Day episode, we're already talking about MILFs.
I didn't say the word, brother. I just saw your red cheeks.
But I love I'd love to think that if I were brutally murdered and sent down a river wrapped in plastic to be discovered by a special agent Dale Cooper in one of the most iconic TV pilots of all time, that my mum would react with the same level of like, oh,
Nice.
yeah,
Care and compassion.
yeah. I just saw a new movie that just came out called Beau is Afraid, which is essentially it's been described by the director as a Jewish Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
And the story is literally the main character, Bo, is trying to get back to his mum's house for her funeral because she's suddenly passed. And it's this, I guess, odyssey of freakish, like it's basically, it sets up if you are an anxiety-ridden, neurotic mess of a person driven by, it's like this idea of Jewish guilt is central to the movie. What would the world look like if all of those anxieties and fears were real?
Wow.
So it's this weird, surreal comedy nightmare thing. But without spoiling it, the mother in that movie is such an interesting character. Not the sort of mum that I would want. Okay. Because, again, it's what if all your worst fears were true? So I guess that's a way of not answering the question. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. This idea of if the idea of the controlling, judgmental mother that hovers over your life, if all your worst fears about that kind of archetypal idea were real, what would that look like?
Wow.
Yeah. What about you?
Okay, thanks for asking. I can tell you who isn't.
Yeah. I feel like that's common between us.
Yeah, I know. Who isn't my favourite, but who is actually, if you do a Google on famous TV mums, this mum comes up as the number one favourite TV mum. Can you think who it might be?
No.
No, and we're not in the same demographic. So,
and again, you're talking to the wrong person because I don't watch any TV.
Okay, so people that are in my age bracket, which is, grandma lady.
I'm just going to let that slide, but
60s,
continue.
70s, 80s. Carol Brady from the Brady Bunch is considered the perfect mum with her smooth, blow-dried blonde hair, and she's just lovely. And I don't even think she farts. She's so lovely. She's just like perfect.
Girls don't fart. I don't know if you knew
don't.
that. Yeah,
no,
just doesn't happen.
And certainly not in the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
So Carol Brady is not. Florence Henderson did a great job playing Carol, but she's definitely not my favourite TV mum. I didn't want a mum like her. It was most interesting, but I loved the show.
Yep.
I loved the show. Then there's Marion Cunningham. Do you know who she is?
No.
She's from Happy Days.
Okay, never watched an episode.
Fonzie.
I know what
Jonty.
it is, yeah.
Jonty, you need to go and have a look at that. So I'm really showing my age now. But Marion was a little bit like Carol Brady. She was a little bit perfect and very quintessential 50s mother, Then I was thinking about the mums that do move me, and the ones that I really like. And I've realised that I've got a bit of a type.
Oh, yeah?
And it was a bit disturbing because the first mum that I loved was Endora, and she was the mother on Bewitched. So she was beautiful Samantha, the beautiful blonde, perfect witch's mum. And Endora was like badass cray-cray, man. She was like off the planet. She was actually quite wicked and did horrible things to Samantha's husband, and she was quite a bitch. But I loved Endora. She was like one of my favourite TV mums. Then I was thinking, I'm a bit odd that I would think that she was a favourite. Then I went thinking through other TV mums, and the next favourite TV mum is Gemma from Sons of Anarchy. I don't know if you know that series, but it was a bikie series, and when Rob and I were riding our motorbikes together, I loved it. It's actually violent. It was angry. I was in the middle of dealing with my child abuse stuff. I was in angry, badass mode, and I loved it. I loved watching it. I loved watching people get killed, get their heads cut off. It was just so good. And often they were people that did horrible things to children. They would end up in gruesome ways. So it actually, I really sound like I'm
cathartic.
not well.
No, but it's cathartic.
Yeah, it was at the time. Anyway, Gemma was just brutal. This brutal, badass mother who did horrific things. Yet I really loved her. Clever writing, right? Very clever writing.
Well, I think about like Game of Thrones. Take your pick of all the mothers in that show that do horrendous things in the name of their family to protect their kids, basically, and to protect their family.
What a phenomenal segue into the mum that I wanted to talk about from the Bible today.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's to protect the family. That's the thing. I've got a list of other great mothers. I think I'll go there now because you've just done a great segue. I was thinking,
didn't even plan that one.
No, you did so well, Jonty. I was thinking about Moses' mum.
Yeah.
You know, and you know the Moses story, and it's just the Bible according to Ness. Moses' mum falls pregnant during a period of time in Egypt when the Israelites are all being held there. They'd been there for over 400 years in slavery, and Pharaoh was growing his empire and he was using his slave trade to build it up. So he turns up the heat, he gets the shits, and he commands that all the Hebrew midwives murder all the newborn baby sons, right? When the women were giving birth. So it's pretty brutal stuff. And then he realises he can't rely on the midwives to carry out the job because they don't want to kill the newborn babies, because these midwives were fearing God more than they were actually fearing Pharaoh. So he tried a different approach, and he told just the people to be on the lookout for these Hebrew baby boys to be born. And if you saw one, that the edict was to throw them into the Nile River. Now, the Nile River is known for all their crocs, right? Crikey crocs everywhere. It would have just been... Like Gator, mate. It would have just been... Not gold. It would have just been badass. You know, baby munch zone in the Nile River.
Yeah.
Anyway, Moses' mum is called Jochebed, and she becomes pregnant with her third kid at this particular time in history. And so it must have been, so fearful to be pregnant at this time, thinking, am I going to have a boy? Are they going to take him and kill him? If it's a little boy, how do I protect my precious son? She was somebody that totally loved God. And I think about the kind of fears that I had when I was newly pregnant, and they weren't things like that. I wasn't worried about genocide. You know, I know there's countries that we do worry about this stuff, you know.
It's still a thing in some parts of the world, absolutely.
100%. So there's women that worry about this stuff when they're pregnant, you know, the babies being taken away from them and raised off to go and be soldiers in the army and stuff like that. Horrific. But the greatest fear I had was I going to push the kid out, and was it my pieces going to stay put together? Was I going to have a walk again? Do you know what I mean? But there are real fears in pregnancy. I was just quite blessed that I didn't have too many to worry about. Anyway, Jochebed finds herself stressed about this, but totally stands in faith and believes that God is going to look after her, and she has this rock solid, courageous faith, which I think is just such an attribute as a mum. And so she has this kid. The baby gets born, and I don't know if you've been around many babies, Jonty, but the little suckers cry and they scream and they squeal. So how the heck did she keep this baby quiet so people in her area or her village didn't take him away or, throw the cover or throw him under the bus, so to speak?
Yeah.
She manages to care for this kid for about 3 months, I believe. Then she hatches a plan. And it's extraordinary. She knew that just down a little way down the river, Pharaoh's daughters would hang. Like, women would actually congregate by the river near the reeds to bathe, to gather, a bit like going to the shops, going up to the, Castle Towers shopping centre for a cappuccino. Morning coffee. They didn't do that. They gathered and they caught up with life and did their chick thing down by the reeds. So what she does is she takes a cane basket, coats it in, the Bible describes as pitch and tar. I'm thinking waterproof, sticky, gooey goop on the outside so this vessel would float. Interestingly, Noah coats the ark with pitch and tar.
Yep.
So a little mini ark she creates for her precious baby son, 3 months old. She's going to put this kid wrapped up in this little vessel and then just not shove it out into the guts of the Nile where the gator can have sort of a munch, but she strategically places this kid into the reeds where she hopefully knows that maybe he'll squeak and one of the women will have pity on this little one.
Yeah.
She's so strategic and so well thought out. She actually sends her daughter Miriam, who's a bit older, to go look out, almost like a meerkat on lookout, right?
Yeah.
So Miriam's checking out what's going on. Kid squeaks, and the mothers and the women go, oh, baby, must be a Hebrew baby. Pharaoh's daughter rescues the kid. And then Miriam pops her head out and says, oh, by the way, do you need a wet nurse to look after this little baby? And she says, because the custom at the time was yes. And Miriam says, well, I've got one that you can use. Guess who she is? Moses' mummy, who still had the boobs on tap. And then Pharaoh's daughter hands the baby over, says that this is my baby, but I will give it to you, raise it up, then I want it back.
Yep.
And then we know the rest of the story because Moses goes and saves the Israelites.
It's the story that's been adapted into the Prince of Egypt's animated movie.
Yeah, that's the
which is
one.
one of the greats, I think.
Absolutely. Beautiful movie. Absolutely. So I think to myself, what a mother. What extraordinary lengths did this mother go to protect her child? And how the hell must have her faith been? Must have been absolutely on fire to pray and hope that God would land this little one into good care. And actually faithfully does what she is called to do, and actually the baby ends up back in her care, and she's actually being paid to care for him by Pharaoh. So she's a modern working at home mum, feeding her own baby and caring for her own child. I think, wow, that's motherhood on steroids,
Absolutely. But the importance of that as well is sort of given more texture when we understand who that child grows up to be and the role that child plays in the history of God's people as well.
Absolutely. And we think of other mums in the Bible. You think of Jesus' mum, Mary. I mean, Jesus died when he was about 33, right? Mary must have been some kick-ass mum to care for him.
She was probably 12 or 13, I think, is what we
Holy
think.
moly, is that right?
Well, I could be wrong. I'll Google this while we're talking. But
so full
yeah,
on.
that's.
Yeah, well,
historically, she probably was a teenager.
Yeah, whenever she got a period anyway, probably. Yeah. She was then at a marital age, wasn't she? Yeah, that's phenomenal. So you think about that mum, you think about Mary and her.
It says here 13 or 14 years old. Yep.
Good heavens.
Yeah. And like how old people were expected to live, their life expectancy was so low, and a lot of women died in childbirth.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of those women that died in childbirth were probably teenagers.
Yep. Heart-wrenching.
Yeah. The strength and will involved in a teenager being a mother.
Yeah.
Unreal. Like
just a child yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I think of those mums. You think of Mary raising Jesus to become, our saviour, and you think of Jochebed raising Moses. Well, she didn't raise Moses, but she grew Moses in her tummy, and she grew him up to a point where she then had to hand him over back to Pharaoh's daughter. And then he grew up in the life of Pharaoh's child, as a part of the arrangement there. And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So she set him up, didn't she? Faithful, courageous, strong and powerful woman.
I'm wondering, is there some sort of metaphor that we can have a look at in the act of letting that child go into the river as well?
Just the whole letting go thing is just, that whole letting go thing, I'm dealing with that at the moment, being a mum with a daughter that's just got married last year and one that's 22 turning 23, and I think, I'm at that letting go thing, almost pushing them into the river, sending them on their way. It's hugely hard. It's a tricky time, because you want to see them float. You want to see them thrive and survive and become faith-filled God people. But you've got to let them go and know that I suppose as a mum, your job is done and you've just partnered with God in getting them to that point, and the rest has to be them and God on their journey. You're always hovering in the background, of course, and they come to you for advice and love and nurture, but it's not the same intensity as when they're at home and under your protection as little ones.
Yeah, I've really close friends of mine have an 18-month-old at the moment, and I mean, I kind of already had an understanding of what it takes to mother a child, particularly from the mother's perspective, more so than the father at this age. But just it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job to raise a child, and seeing that not from the perspective of being the child.
Yeah.
Having, obviously, like everyone, I grew up with, hopefully, some sort of mother figure in my life, but like seeing a close friend go through that, having to put aside a whole bunch of other things in their life that they value for the sake of this young child. Like, it's a huge sacrifice.
It's massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm watching my daughter do it with her dog. She's like a fur mum at the moment. And I'm watching the commitment that it's taking her with a full-time job and this golden retriever in their new marriage. It is massive. And she's saying, Mum, I'm so glad I've done this before I've had a kid, because it's great training. She's having to not do her workouts when the dog needs her. Her routine has changed because she's got to match the dog's routine. She's not getting the same sleep cycles because she's got to take the dog out for a wee. It's been a huge impact to her life. And I keep saying to her, babe, the dog's easy. You wait till you have a little squawker in a nappy.
Yeah.
You can't just leave it when you go to work in the apartment. It's a 24/7 commitment for the next 30 fucking years. Kids are full on, man. It's huge. So shout out to the mums out there, and you may not be a mum that did the big vaginal push or the, might
have got airlifted.
Might have got airlifted. That's right. You might be a mum who emotionally and spiritually cared for a child and raised a child. Go you legend. You might be an adoptive parent. Oh, that just blows my brain. This kudos. I just think, that's impressive. It's so impressive. And what a calling. What an incredible calling, and how grateful that there are couples that are able to fulfill that in the world. I just think it's amazing. It's an amazing thing, motherhood. It really is, but it's about that partnership with God, isn't it? Because we don't do it alone. It's not just the mum that does the gig. It's God does it with us every step of the way. And hopefully there's a dad around the corner there somewhere too.
This is the way my brain works. I have snippets of comedy specials that pop up in my brain that link with sections of conversation. But like, one of my favorite comic groups is a married couple.
Yeah.
Tom Segura and Christina P. And in one of Tom's specials, he says, you want to know the most important thing about having a dad? Don't leave the kid. Other than that, job well done. Like, being a dad's easy.
Don't leave it.
Just don't leave the kid.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, he's joking, but like the fact that he's pointing to with the joke is, as a father, you can.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to
leave.
breastfeed your child.
No.
But like, there's another in her special. In one of them, she says, like, when the child is young and you're still in the, if you do breastfeed, you're in that breastfeeding period, and they're getting up 3 times in the night and blah 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 blah, and there are points in that time of your life that you just want to murder your spouse. And it's times where they say, oh, can I do anything to help? And she just snaps and goes, yeah, you could grow a pair of tits. How about that?
Exactly.
So I do the role that mothers play, particularly in that age when they're completely dependent, is like not even comparable to the father, I think. That's not to discredit the role that fathers play in child's development, but I think I'm more saying this in a way of honouring
mums.
Yeah, the dedication that mums have to their children. Yeah.
Yeah, the good ones anyway. Yeah, There's dodgy ones out there for sure, you know, but the good ones are 100% committed to their kid. That's a given. And I think it's so easy to become a mum or a dad, isn't it? You know, well, for some people, I shouldn't say that because some people have huge fertility problems, but it's, you know, the actual active, or you've just got to have a successful sperm and an egg meet, and then you can become a parent whether or not you've done the training or not, whether or not you think you're up to the gig or not, you know. So becoming a parent and the process of becoming a parent for lots of people, because we have a world full of them, it's not hard for everybody, is we can become a parent, but it doesn't mean that you'll be a good parent.
There's an argument for registered parenthood, which obviously crosses lines of human rights and ethical and for some theological boundaries of what's right and wrong, but this idea that, and this is, to be clear, this is not what I think, this is a thought, this is a school of thought that people subscribe to, and there's a whole lot of debate about whether or not this is a good idea, but you have to register to become a parent, at which point, whether it's the government, whether it's the medical facilities, infrastructure in whatever state that you live in or whatever, you have to pass a base level of competency to be legally allowed to have children. Because the flip side of exactly what you've been talking about is you see so often, I have a couple of friends who live down near Wollongong, and one that worked at Dapto High School, and some of the stories that I heard about parents just abandoning their children at school and not coming to pick them up.
Yeah.
Or I had another friend who worked in the hospital down there, and a dad dropped a 6-year-old daughter off and said, can you please just look after her for a couple of hours? I just need to go and run an errand. I have nowhere else to, no one can look after her in those 2 hours. Can you please just hang on to her and I'll come back? Didn't turn up again, just left. And so there is, unfortunately, the reality of our world is that there are bad parents.
Oh, heaps of them. Parramatta Court's full of it.
The really tough ethical question is, should there be some form of regulation?
Yeah, I like it.
Jokingly, I've heard people say all males should have a vasectomy, and at age 25 they can apply to have it reversed.
Wow.
Which is over the top and obviously a joke, but the core idea at the heart of that is, ethically, as a parent, you do have a responsibility, not just for your own potential child, but the other children around them.
Oh, yeah. Look, I just remember saying to the girls, when you choose to have sex, do know that sex equals children.
Biologically, that's what it's there for.
It's what it's about, mate. Yes, it's fun. You'll have a good time, but those sperms can crawl up legs and those suckers make children. And then you've got to make the choice, keep it or kill it. Literally. And I said it like that. Keep it or kill it. And I remember conversations with my girls, they were horrified, Jonty. I said, but that's the reality here. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to have sex, you've got to be prepared to be a parent.
And it's much easier to have made that decision beforehand than if you haven't thought about it and all of a sudden either you're pregnant or your partner's pregnant or someone that you have, a sexual partner that you've just met becomes pregnant, and now you have to make a decision about it.
Got to think about it.
It's not, and this is how I feel about this, but it's not it's not about preventing the sex from happening at all in the first place,
No.
but it's about educating people to
Yeah,
make those decisions
not saying that.
beforehand.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you want to have sex, you just go and do it. Be responsible about it.
Equipping people to
Yes.
have the tools to make those decisions in the first place.
And to know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not just about getting your rocks off. It's about, do people still say that expression? Is that a thing? How do
think
I
so.
even know that?
I think so.
Was that an 80s expression?
No, that made sense to me.
Did it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought about that. That's testicles. I've never really thought about what that really means. It's because I'm studying hermeneutics at the moment. I'm thinking,
You're thinking critically about
oh,
that.
it's stupid. It's much better if I just freely speak. No, it's an important topic, isn't it? Yeah, but shout out to all the people that are mums out there. Go you, you're legends. Incredible job.
My mum's in Europe at the moment, so I won't see her. Spoiler alert, we're recording this before Mother's Day. Sorry, Summer. But like, I haven't seen Mum this Mother's Day.
No.
I'll try and catch her on the phone.
Is that weird?
But I think it's probably the first. I think it's also one of the things I'm coming to terms with, kind of like what we were talking about before, about this idea that when you start to become an adult, you kind of have to let go a little bit.
Do you have to let go, or does Mum have to let go?
I think in both directions, because I've been living out of home for about 18 months now.
Yeah.
And that was a process of I'm not living with my mum anymore. She's not upstairs if I need anything. And, you know, my parents are in Europe for a month. I'm on my own. And I have been on my own for, in that sense, like I have been living independently for a while now. But like, I guess Mother's Day is just kind of a point in the roadmap of like, well, really reminding me of like, I'm living independently now. If I need anything, Mum's in Europe. You're on your own, dude. Like, yeah.
She did a good job with you.
There are other people around in my life that are there to support me, but in terms of that, like, really specific mother-son relationship, that develops. It has to develop. You meet people who are 40 and haven't learned to live without their mum or their dad or whatever, and they're just not independent, and it's like a case of arrested development where you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
That development just didn't happen.
Yeah. They did a good job with you, brother.
I would say
Your
thank
mum
you,
and
but
dad?
I had nothing to do with it.
No, well, you were a part of the arrangement. Yeah. And you were raised in a faith-filled home where God was placed at the epicenter of probably all their decisions, I would guess. And you had a community around you of believers who loved and nurtured you, and you had role models in your life that were women.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That
And I want
were
to say that
motherish.
like it's not just biological mums.
No. Yep.
You know, I think Mother's Day is a good excuse to celebrate motherly figures in our lives, but I think it's something that like I want to normalize, just like telling people that are important to you that they mean a lot to you. And so it's not like, obviously my mum means a lot to me. But there are a whole bunch of other women in my life that and it's important that they know that they had a huge role in my development in that kind of mother-son quasi
Special
relationship.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a couple of women like that too. Shout out to beautiful June Askew. She was our neighbour, and I used to call her Junie. Yep. And Zoe, my sister, and I used to play what we'd call Junies, because we thought she was like the epitome of a mother. She was like the perfect mother. She was pretty, and she was blonde, and she was just kind, and I would go over there and I could have an orange juice, and we didn't have orange juice. We only had GI cordial, and they had better biscuits and that kind of thing. I suppose June would spoil my sister and I. She was just beautiful, and the same with the other lady across the road, Jan. Jan Shepherd she was just gorgeous. She had the best hair. And I remember looking at her and thinking, oh, she's a perfect mother also. You know, she's just so kind. She dressed impeccably, and she was always so loving to her children. And I remember looking at both of those women and thinking, they are lovely mothers to my friends. Interesting, isn't it?
I think
I looked up to them.
something that has been a more recent thing for me, and I have those people too that like from my childhood I held up as, you know, what a great mum that person is.
Yeah.
Now as an adult, still knowing some of those people, and you hear stories about, that time 15 years ago at that event, me and my partner were actually having a really, really rough time.
Right.
And obviously I'm speaking vaguely and hypothetically, but like we're still married, we have a very happy family, but it
was rough.
Recontextualizing when you're young and you look up to these people, they're these paragons of motherhood and fatherhood and perfect families, but then when you're an adult and you're still in relationship with those people and they explain to you like that time when you were looking up to me as a great mother figure, I was actually arguing with my husband constantly and we were wondering, like, we're really struggling with work and money and the kids thing, and you know, it's not that we were at each other all the time, but like it wasn't smooth the whole time, and all of a sudden you go, well, as a child I still was able to look at them as an ideal, like a picture of great parenthood. What a doubly great image of parenthood then, that they were willing to sacrifice, or willing to, what's the way I'm trying to say this, willing to put aside those things for the sake of the young people in their lives, that they were still there for them as parent figures, not 100%. Even necessarily as parents, and the sacrifice and the faithfulness that takes to hold that discomfort and that conflict, while still committing to being parents
and raising the kids. Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? I've got a plethora of stories about growing up in North Epping and what went on, and the inverted commas, the babysitting club that went on. That wasn't a babysitting club at all, and it was a switcheroo, and it was a very 1970s thing, and I've heard the stories about what went down, and I was a kid and I didn't know as a kid that was going on. Same thing, Jonty, you know, impressive adults just still caring for the kids in that time. Mums.
Yeah, and I also want to acknowledge that not everyone has a great relationship with their mother.
No.
There are numerous people in my life that I'm wary that times like Mother's Day, or even just family events or whatever, when the idea of family is at the forefront, that's actually difficult and not something that brings them joy.
Super stressful for many families, hey?
Absolutely.
Shout out to them too. That's why I love having a Heavenly Father, because if all things go pear-shaped in the earthly family thing, I've got the Heavenly Father thing as, you know, my other parent. It's so cool. I can rely on. That sounds pie in the sky, doesn't it? But it's a thing.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting that there's imagery in the Bible about Jesus as a mother figure as well.
Yeah.
The classic one being the hen that gathers chicks under the wing.
Yeah.
I think we have a tendency to lean into God as a father figure, and that's backed up by a plethora of scripture about God as a father figure. But there's also plenty in scripture about God as a mother figure, and I think when we break down our preconceived ideas of God as being gendered, the father being a representation of a much larger God, kind of like we've talked about the elephant analogy, where in the dark, two people trying to figure out what an elephant looks like, one will be touching the trunk, the other will be touching a leg. They both have very different ideas of what that elephant is. And they're both right, but neither has the full picture. I think that's how I kind of understand this idea of God as a father. Like, yes, but also, because for a lot of people, and we're talking about mothers obviously, but the idea of the father is also very problematic for a lot of people. You know, I think God the Father has been used in some church settings as for a means towards power, which is really damaging, particularly for people if you've got a damaged relationship with your own earthly father, going, here's the perfect father.
Oh, yeah.
bam, you're bought in, and therefore you have spiritual authority over this other person, that's really can be used in a damaging way. So I think it's important to recognize that God, as represented in Scripture, is not just a father figure, but is also represented as other things as well.
Yeah, nurturer.
Because, sorry to break it to you, but I don't know if God has a penis. Like, God is not a gendered...
Play the music. Bum, bum, bum.
It, like, we as humans, we inevitably try and project our own human understanding of personality onto God, which just is not the case. God is so much bigger than our understanding of gender or sexuality or identity or even just the human form, right? And
Can't
I think
wait to get there and work it all out.
Yeah.
And go, there we are. Relationships with mums can be really tricky, can't they? And I've had a tricky relationship with my mum over the years. And somebody said to me just recently, have you forgiven her, Ness? And I said, yeah, of course, I've forgiven her. But the part I struggle with is forgetness.
Yeah.
I struggle with the forgetting and the trusting. That's my piece. So it's not a lack of forgiveness in my heart, but it's an inability to forget and probably move forward into newness. And my greatest worry is that I'm going to get to a point and I've not been able to do that. I've not been able to set that aside and move forward in newness, in a new way of being with her. And that breaks my heart. I get really sad about that because I just don't know what to do with it. I just don't know how to fix it, make it better, soothe it, restore it, redeem it. And I've just come to the conclusion that it will be redeemed. The relationship will be redeemed in heaven. I've sort of got to that because I don't feel there's anything more I can do to fix it. I just don't think it's fixable. So I grieve that. I grieve the mother relationship. Like I look at my friends with June that I mentioned before, and I look at their beautiful mum and I look at their relationship with their mum and I go, oh, that looks so good. That just looks so loving and kind. And I look at my friend Linda and how she nurtured her mum right to her end, and I think, oh, that looked so beautiful. Tricky, very tricky relationship that she had with her mum at the end because her mum was so sick. But I think, wow, she was a great mum. Great mum for Linda. Yeah, I don't really know what to do with it. So I find Mother's Day tricky.
A lot of people do. I don't know if this applies to your situation, but I think something I think we've talked about this before as well on this show, but I've got this really strong sense over the last couple of years, like this conviction about relationships that are one-sided or broken or damaged in any kind of way, that you can only, as an individual, there's only so much that you can do to heal those relationships. And it actually requires cooperation on both ends. And coming to a conclusion in my life that there were a number of relationships at a certain point that were becoming entirely one-sided, that they were damaged, that they were broken, and I was the only one attempting to fix them.
Yeah.
And letting go of the, I guess, guilt or the sense of that you're giving up in going, well, that's actually no longer something that is life-giving for me and is worth my time. Invitation is still open to that person, but you also have the invitation. You also are well within your right, and it is to your benefit not to cut those people out of your life, but to stop pouring the energy in if it's not getting you anywhere. And, you will still, and I'm talking vaguely, you can still be available to that person if they do want to start putting their energy back in. But until that happens, you've kind of gone, ball is in your court. Your move. I'll still be here, but I'm not going to be putting any more energy into that. And that's okay. But that doesn't also then mean that it's not going to be painful.
Yeah.
Like that can still really hurt. And that still hurts me to think about the situations in my life that applies to. But I'm more at peace and more okay with not pouring energy into those relationships anymore. Because I just, if you're not getting anywhere and that other person isn't willing to take part in that relationship.
Yeah, my situation's a little bit different. I suppose to protect myself, my inner children just shut down because they don't want to be hurt anymore. And they're so easily hurt, triggered and devoed by just the slightest look, glance or word. So for me, it's just easier to not overly engage because I just find that it's just detrimental to my own psyche.
Yeah.
So I take full responsibility for where my relationship is with Mum at the moment, and I just know it'll be made whole in heaven because I know that God will forgive us both, and God has forgiven us both, and He'll restore us to our perfect glory when we get there.
Amen to that.
Yeah, because I am no angel, brother. I know you think I am. But I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe for our listeners, this can serve as maybe a prompting if there's a person that's flashing in your brain as you're listening to us today as someone that you need to talk to about anything that we've kind of talked about today, maybe this can serve as a prompt to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Or if you're sitting there going, oh my God, I just realized that I've been pouring all this energy into this relationship and getting nothing back, it's okay to stop.
Yeah.
No, it might hurt, but unfortunately that's the way it goes. You are allowed to just stop.
Yep. Yeah. Permission to stop.
Yeah.
That's it.
Should we wrap up?
Let's.
That was a really good chat. I hope this was helpful.
I hope it was helpful. I feel like there was so many things I shouldn't have said, but I said anyway. Please forgive me if I've offended you in any way, listeners.
But I think that's why it's important to have these conversations, because I'm sure some of the things that you've said, people have gone, I've thought the exact same thing and I've never been brave enough to say it.
Yeah. I just speak it from lived experience.
Absolutely. And yeah, things that even if they aren't capital T true, things hold truth when they come out of a real expression or a real feeling that's true to the person saying it. So I think, just when you feel really strongly about something and you feel something building, feeling the freedom to just say it without necessarily going, I have to stand by every single thing that comes out of my mouth. Because there is a truth that will be buried in there somewhere
100%.
That's being filtered through your own cognitive mess of what's going on that you can't necessarily filter through yourself. But by saying it, suddenly it's real and people can start talking about it and you can start to unpack it and you can start to grow. So, I mean, that's kind of what this show is all about, just saying it and unpacking it. Yeah.
So I hope the mothers had a happy Mother's Day, and I hope the people that act as mothers had a happy Mother's Day, and I hope all the other women out there had a happy Mother's Day.
And if you haven't called your mum yet, call your mum.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you
just
don't
say g'day.
And if you don't want to call your mum, don't call your mum.
Absolutely.
And if you think you need therapy, get therapy.
Yeah.
Or if you're on your drugs, stay on your drugs. All of those things. And if you're young and you're thinking about having sex, get protection.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so like a mother then. I'm Ness.
I'm Jonty. See you next week. Bye.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt.
beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that isn't yours, and find hope in understanding. Life is not a